Welcome to Washington Central. I am Saurabh Shukla. The big news story here in the US is the US election results, and that too, the spectacular victory of Zohran Mamdani, a Democratic socialist, as the youngest mayor of New York. At 34, Zohran promises a lot, and obviously his agenda endeared him to the younger voters who voted overwhelmingly for Zohran. But a lot of people are asking what was the real reason of his victory? And this is what I've gathered in my analysis, talking to people on the ground, his young supporters. One of the things that New York voters were looking for was change, change from the establishment. Obviously, previous mayor Eric Adams had his own challenges. There were a slew of scandals. They were looking for a fresh face. Zohran Mamdani provided that. His electric campaign touched a chord with an average New Yorker who were reeling at whole thing about affordability. New York, as a city of aspiration, is one of the cities which is sought after by young Americans. Everyone who passes out of college wants to aspire to be in New York. And what was happening was a big challenge of affordability, where the house rents were going up. Young parents did not have enough money to afford childcare. So that's one of the promises he made. He also spoke about providing free bus rides in a city which has a subway system and obviously has a bus system. A lot of people rely on public transport. So these are the promises which really helped him connect with his voters. Then he went all out on his electric campaign, had a whole Bollywood twist. Some of his ads went viral. In fact, on the election day victory speech, he ended with quoting Jawaharlal Nehru and also ended with Dhoom Machale, a Bollywood tune. Clearly, he wants to be that mascot for change in the American politics. And certainly, he was the biggest headline on the election night here in the US, even though there were elections in other states as well, Virginia, New Jersey, where the governor's election happened with bigger stakes there. But Zohran Mamdani made the biggest headlines. Clearly, he has arrived in US politics. Certainly, it's his first term as the mayor of New York will be watched not only in the US, but across the globe. But he has to make sure that once he has been elected, he has to be the real mayor of New York, making sure that the city which never sleeps is taken along in terms of not only economic progress, but really living up to some of the promises that he made. And this is not going to be easy because obviously it is a complicated city. Law enforcement is another issue where he will have to really focus his energies because obviously lately in New York, crime has spiraled out. People feel unsafe in public, whether it's subway or even being out on the streets, even though that city is always alive. So Zohran would have to be now coming out of his poster boy image to doing some real work. And certainly he has a lot of promise, charisma, if you ask me. That's why a lot of young voters, he stitched his campaign in a manner in which he endeared to the real New Yorkers, as I said earlier, whether going to a club, partying with some of his core voters, to dining in the night with the cabbies, all that every traditional politician does, but he did it even without the traditional support of his parties. Even though he won the Democratic nomination, the elders within his own party, including people from New York, people like Chuck Schumer, the Senate minority leader, they were reluctantly supporting him. He only had a few who were supporting him, people like Bernie Sanders, AOC. President Obama's support came to him almost at the last mile. And even though he has said that he wants to be his sounding board, it remains to be seen how that equation pans out. But Zohran, obviously, from the looks of it, is a sharp young man. Certainly, now that he has been elected, he will have to do some balancing act as well, because a lot of his ideas are also which created some controversy. So it remains to be seen, because now that he's mayor of New York, a city which has one of the most diverse cities in the US, has people from all faith, religion. How does he take them together? That's going to be a big challenge. The other big challenge would be how will he take on the mighty landlords? A lot of billionaires were stacked against him, and that's one of the key thing that has been talked about. That his victory came despite the big money rallying against him. But it was in some ways people's victory. A lot of his ideas obviously were sharp. Some of them were ill-informed, not close to the truth. But certainly, when you fight an election, sometimes you make those promises. Uh, uh, it remains to be seen how will he actually live it to each of his promises. The other big thing, what happens with the US President Donald Trump? He obviously, in his victory speech, in some ways, which was music to his supporters, said that addressed U.S. President Donald Trump and said that you were watching clearly, sent out a big message to him, but he has to uh, live with President Trump because out of a budget of almost close to $110 billion that New York has, almost $90 billion of that is also federal aid. So he will have to do some balancing act in making to do with the president. President Trump obviously has said earlier that he may withdraw some of the federal aid from New York. Whether he will do it uh, remains to be seen. But certainly, Zohran will have to mend ties with the White House and make sure that he cohabits. They will disagree on a lot of issues, but in certain ways, uh, as President Trump has been saying, that he has been working with a lot of mayors, even mayors of Washington D.C., who was initially not happy with the imposition of National Guard in the city, went along. How much of an elbow room Zohran has to be seen, but it will be an interesting equation to watch there. How does this impact democratic politics? I would say that Democrats really have got a booster shot post these elections. 2026 is going to be a big one when the midterms will happen. Already, the Democratic Party is feeling confident, but certainly they were a divided house, if you ask me, post the presidential election, which elected President Trump. Certainly, they were looking for these elections as a booster shot, and that's really helped them in some ways. How can they capitalize on it remains to be seen. On the other hand, I've been talking to a lot of Republican strategists. While some of them at the White House tell me that these elections do not send out a message, because they said that all these states, whether it's New Jersey, even Virginia, where they had a Republican governor earlier, but they have voted Democrats all along. New York City has always been a Democrat stronghold, so they don't see this as a reflection of President Trump's policy, and they don't see a reset coming soon. But on the other hand, there are a lot of people within the Republican parties who believe that focus on affordability, focus on economic policies has to be more. So that may lead to some reject, so to say, in terms of the priorities of the administration. But that we have to wait and watch, because this is just an election which does not impact the presidency as a whole. The U.S. president is elected for 4 years. He has almost 3 more years to go, and certainly it remains to be seen how will he manage that. The federal shutdown, which has crossed the record of 35 days and going, that has to be tackled, because that is taking a heavy toll, whether in terms of people not getting paid. There's a humanitarian crisis, but there's a crisis at hand in terms of the air traffic controller, TSAs, all those the lifelines of the US economy or the US transportation system, they are getting impacted. So how will that pan out is a tightrope that President Trump and his advisors have to walk. And clearly, that has his own message. A lot of Republican strategists also tell me that Zoran's victory, in some ways, is a blessing in disguise. That's their way of putting it, because they feel that a democratic socialist getting elected can be highlighted by them as in states, red states, and even in urban centers, as someone who has radical left ideas, which they've been opposed to, and obviously goes against the ethos of for what they say is their template. How will that play out? Again, we'll have to wait and watch. But for now, this election has turned out to be, as I said, a booster shot for Democrats. Zohran Mamdani emerges as a fresh new young face for American politics, and this template can be used by many leaders, many young leaders across the political aisle to come up. In fact, there are talks of even Republican strategists trying to imitate and trying to study his campaign, Zoran's campaign. There are other countries which have sent out representatives to study how he stitched his campaign, how he managed to fight even the big bucks in a country where money talks, and in a city where money talks even more. It's an interesting development. As I said, a fresh new face has emerged in US politics. How much of an impact he will make, we'll keep you posted. But for now, these are interesting times in the US politics. And before I go, I want to talk about the Indian American vote. A lot of them voted for Mamdani, but there were also some who feel that his ideas about India, his ideas were too radical, and some of them felt that it was ill-informed. Certainly, every candidate has his own choice, and certainly some of the ideas I feel that where he talked about, situation in India is far away from reality, but certainly that did impact and cost him some of the Indian American votes. But he did get wider support from the South Asian diaspora, who are very happy at almost Zoran becoming the first South Asian mayor, and that to a youngest mayor of New York. The other candidate too, Lieutenant Governor Hashmi in Virginia, she has been elected. She's also an Indian American who has been elected as Lieutenant Governor on the Democratic ticket. So there are, as I said, the pockets of influence of Indian Americans which are increasing, but certainly the community faces challenges as well in view of what's been happening all around. Do stay connected to Washington Central and do share the podcast on whatever network that you get your podcast on. Thanks for hearing. Thanks for joining us. Have a good day.